Miss Marvel. Okay, I was actually super looking forward to this one. I really wanted to like this show. I was hyped, it looked cool, creative, unique. I like Kamala Khan a lot. She's a super fun character and has a ton of potential for her development and growth. And it just hurts so bad when this happens. Oh my god, it is so disappointing. Credit where credit is due. The first and a bit of the second episodes are really cool. The directing, cinematography are so creative. The visual direction is unlike any other Marvel thing we've had. It's a near perfect visual representation of displaying how someone like Kamala, who has an overactive imagination, would go through her day-to-day life. We'll see murals being painted on the walls or visuals popping in and out like comic books. It's a cool flair to elevate and visualize the idea of her thoughts or her texts or anything else. It's so cool! And beyond the visuals, the initial premise for the plot was also so unique. The beginning of the show really seems like it's going to be setting up the idea of a coming-of-age story. Kamala is trying to fit in at school, make friends, be popular, date cute boys. Stumbling upon superpowers seems to be an extra layer to make her feel like an outsider compared to what she wants. Almost as if her superpowers could be used as an analogy for anything in this sort of scenario for anyone else to reflect onto. On top of that, her personal home life is the cherry on top of the cake here. It's hard enough to feel included and popular, but as a Muslim girl, it feels like she's always fighting against the odds. Her home life with her parents, who hardly seem to understand her point of view, but try their best to accommodate and care for her, is fantastic. When her father teared up because she said she was embarrassed to go to AvengerCon with him, that really broke my heart. That's something you can see with anyone's family. Her relationship with her family and the struggles that even regular people can have with trying to understand each other through their generational differences is a great premise. I wanted to see Kamala learn more about her Pakistani heritage and the struggles her mother faced growing up, while at the same time her mother would learn about Kamala's own interests and struggles in this current day and age. Long story short, something different. Marvel feels so cookie cutter nowadays. After over 10 years, 20 plus movies, and now with Miss Marvel as their 7th TV series, it's all starting to just blend together. Doing something unique with their premises now is crucial for Marvel. WandaVision stands out with its historical TV horror themes. Thor Ragnarok feels different because of Taika Waititi's unique style of comedy. Miss Marvel being a coming-of-age story might not have been a crazy conclusion to make for her character, but it would have at least been something different. But instead, after about halfway through episode 2, it all starts to fall downhill. All that creativity with the visuals of the show just get completely forgotten. Not a hint of that stylistic creativity ever shows up again, until like a brief explanation in the very last episode. That unique idea of Kamala getting along with her parents and the hardships of not only trying to grow up, but being a Muslim American from Pakistan, forgotten. To be fair, we do focus on the history of Pakistani people, and that is cool, and I wish that could have been more of the focus. But instead, it just starts to feel like a backdrop for the 4 different half-ass plots that start bouncing around. They try to establish the damage control as the bad guys, and while showing up at the very beginning and the very end, they serve almost no purpose in the plot. They show up just to be a group of dudes the team needs to fight. It might as well have been any nameless mob of extras. Hydra, Krill, anything. Second, they start to bring up the idea of the Jinn. They introduce these characters, then 10 minutes later they do a 180 and they're like, surprise, we're evil. Kamala has a magical bangle that helps unlock her superpowers, and they're like, yo, we want the bangle so we can go back to our dimension. And Kamala's like, dope, I'm all on board with that idea, just let me finish attending my brother's wedding. And then the Jinn suddenly decide, we can't wait the hour it'll take for the wedding to end, let's ambush her because we're suddenly bad guys. Third, they try to set up the idea of the Red Dagger. It's brief. In one episode, she meets these 2 dudes, does one training montage, and then they just kill off one of the dudes. And like, I don't care. I don't know this guy. Everything about the whole daggers thing was a complete waste of time. And then all these plot points just kind of end abruptly and anticlimactic ways. So why did we have all these 3 different plot points? Because of the 4th thing they try to focus on. Kamala needs her list of hot boys. It's like playing Stardew Valley or Harvest Moon. She just continually bumps into hot hot boys who instantly become infatuated with her. I would love it if Kamala grew friendships and bonds with a lot of different people that come across the course of the show. But instead, every guy lands their eyes on her, and after one brief conversation, it just turns into like a bad fanfiction with a self-insert. The worst part about the constant boys being introduced is we have to interrupt regular conversations to have the characters gawk at, "Oh, do you like each other?" Literally, I am not lying. Kamala is learning about the existence of the Jinn, hyper-powerful magical beings. She's learning she's descended from them, and that her bangle channels magical powers, and in the middle of all of this learning, we stop so the characters can turn to Kamala and hot boy number 2 and go, "You two would make a cute couple." Like, what? Why are you interrupting important scenes with this ship bait? And the worst part about it is, it would have been fine if we just got to develop these boys. I'm not upset with the idea of Kamala having a crew of hot boys. It's the fact that they all feel half-developed. They just are there, and conceptually they're neat, but they never get to actually develop, not with each other, not as themselves, or with Kamala, and it kind of feels like a hodgepodge mess. Speaking of powers, Kamala's looks terrible. The CG is so low budget feeling and not creative. But honestly, I'm willing to forgive the lackluster CG. It is a TV budget, even though it is Marvel and you'd think they would have the money to go all out, but whatever. But all I would really want to see is her powers being cool, but they're not. The only limitations to her powers is her own imagination. Seen from how creative and how extensive her imagination is from episode 1, you'd think being creative with her powers would be a no-brainer. Oh well, you're wrong. Little platforms to stand on. A shield. A big fist. That's it. Those are your only options, that's all. It's so boring. Hell, actually every single action scene and fight scene are all pretty dang boring. They stop and talk a lot in the middle of the fights, the camera bounces around a lot. Their actual action techniques are just simplistic. It's not visually entertaining. They took this super creative show with a ton of unique possibilities, and instead they watered it down to look like every single other run-of-the-mill action superhero story. And not even an impressive one at that. It feels painfully paint by numbers. You can tell there was some serious struggles with rewrites somewhere down the line. I guarantee the initial idea for the show would have been closer to what I wanted. A coming-of-age story about a Muslim girl in Jersey who happens to have superpowers. But instead, some executive or something stepped in and watered the show down into this boring, drab Snorville of a story. And you can tell it just hurts the flow of every single plot point they attempt to write, but they all feel half-assed at best. There's a point at the end where they're like, oh, suddenly damage control are the bad guys again. And it's like, okay, I guess we can do this. And they're standing around like, we gotta go to the high school in the middle of the night because no one will be there. And then they do. And then this girl runs up that was in the show earlier. They're like, what are you doing here? And she's like, well, this is where I'd go to film my TikTok dances. What? I hate it. I hate it when corporate executives talk about TikTok dances. That you can tell just some crusty old fucker who's never used TikTok before in his life sat there and went, what do the kids do these days? MySpace, TikTok, blah, 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 blah. And it every time they try to be relevant with what kids do or say, it just feels painfully out of touch. Like you can tell it was written by a bunch of like 30 to 40-year-olds who don't know what kids do these days. And then worst of all after that, it's like, okay, I guess that is a half-assed attempt to explain why this character is here, but at least it was an attempt. But then they're in the middle of explaining their plan of like how they're gonna beat the damage control, and then just her brother shows up. Just randomly. It's like, why are you here? It's like, oh, well, I had to keep an eye on you. What the fuck? Damage, what? Oh, it's so bad. It's such a shame. It's such a disappointment. A great premise, cool design, and an interesting main character and supporting cast. And it all gets sidelined as they just chill out the same old half-ass story beats and action scenes we've seen for over 10 years now from this company. But the company as prestigious and monetarily lucrative as Marvel, I expected much better. Instead, Miss Marvel feels like an afterthought. It's rushed out, poorly written and half-assed attempt at redoing the same old thing we've seen 100 times from Marvel. If I have to sum it up in one word, bland. Shout out to my $10 patrons, you're all amazing. Nako, James Dodds, Cool Duck, Andrew, Ramiel, Valhalla Knight, Chamomile, Classic Critic, Noah Perkins, Sunny Shy, Azoth, Great Bar, Pentamenta, Jake, Storm, Amber, Hype Man, Luno, Zero to Hero, Keithan, Isaiah, Joseph, Scaring Crows, Danny Boy, Mary, Messiah Complex, Jacob, and Renji. I hope you liked this video. Did you like Miss Marvel? If you could, please tell me if you did and why. It's just disappointing. I saw a meme the other day, and it was the Spider-Man pointing meme, and it's like 3 Spider-Men, but they're labeled Kamala Khan, Kate, and then America Chavez. And it's like, oh no, they are all kind of the same character, aren't they? Like the same personality, at least. Oh, Marvel, what happened to you? How could you go downhill this far? So yeah, any thoughts and opinions about the show? If you liked it, I'm really glad you did. I wish I could have. Any thoughts and opinions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.